So you might remember on the channel a couple of weeks ago, I attempted using strobe lighting with my Mamiya RZ67 for the first time. Since then, I've tried it out a couple of different times on mostly commercial shoots and things that I've not shared on this channel. But in today's video, we're going to be talking about a shoot that I did with Jack, who I'll link in the description. He's a model that I've worked with a few times before, and we shot 2 rolls of film whilst we were in the studio. So across those 2 rolls of film, we shot most of it with strobe lighting, bar like a couple of shots that I think were completely just window light. And in today's video, I'm going to be going through them, going through how I feel each individual stock handled the strobe lighting. So the 2 film stocks are, of course, Kodak Gold 200 in medium format. Ever since it was re-released earlier this year, I have loved this film stock, and it was great to, play around with it in the studio and with strobes. And then secondly is probably my favorite black and white film stock, and that is Kodak's Tri-X 400. So in terms of lighting setups, I mainly used 2 different lighting setups, and both were really simple, taking advantage of the amazing natural light at the Photo Cove in Manchester. I've shot there a few times on the channel before. It's a brilliant studio for natural light and also has, strobes that you can use. I was essentially using the window light as a key light and then using strobes to kind of assist that light. So I used 2 different lighting setups throughout the shoot, and one I used more so than the other, and that was utilising the Photo Cove's white cove. So if you don't know what a cove is, it's kind of like a backdrop wall that has like a curve. It's kind of like an infinity cove. Because it's curved, it gives the idea of an infinity. It's a really large backdrop, aside from using something like a colorama. So for the cove setup, I had the window light camera left, I had the window light, and that was accompanied with a large softbox. And I think I also had a reflector towards the back, so that I was bouncing some of that light back into the image behind Jack. And then to camera right, just next to Jack, I had a black flat, and that was to try and create a little bit of shadow and absorb some of that light on the other side of the image. And behind the flat, I had another softbox pointing at the backdrop to light up the backdrop and create some clean whites. The second setup that I used was by using the black flat as a backdrop. So I just did this like adjacent to the Photo Cove, so it was just, it was a little bit away from the natural light, and I put one big softbox camera left, and that was my key light. I was mostly shooting on digital for this shoot, so I was using my digital camera as a light meter when I was working with the strobes, and just transferred the settings that I had on my digital, my Sony a7 III, onto the Mamiya RZ67 when I was shooting it. But enough about the setup, let's have a little look at the photos. So first up, I shot the roll of Kodak Gold 200. Ever since Kodak re-released Kodak Gold in medium format, it's been my go-to film stock. From portraits on location to travel photos, I've really loved the versatility and the feel of this film stock. Trying it in the studio was a natural next step for me. I have actually shot it before this shoot in the studio, but those photos aren't out yet, so I can't share them. But yeah, this was a nice kind of relaxed way to look at the film stock, and it was a very different lighting setup to the first time that I used it in the studio, which I'm sure I'll make a video about once those photos have been released. As a low-speed film, gold feels like the perfect stock to be using alongside strobes. Its colours are accurate and neutral, although I did notice that it had kind of like a brown-green cast in the shadows in particular, as seen in these photos where Jack is wearing a forest green outfit, but the outfit shot on gold kind of makes it look a little bit less saturated, bit more muddy, has a bit more of a brown hue. For reference, I will put up the raw digital photo so you can see the colours of the outfit opposed to it shot on Kodak Gold. So as we kind of found out in previous videos, gold has a great exposure latitude. It seems to deal with, messed up exposures pretty well. And you can see that from the fact that I shot both overexposed and underexposed photos on this roll. But hopefully you don't think either look particularly bad. The underexposed shots were the two that I trialed with window light and no strobes at all. The first one, as soon as I kind of took the photo, I realized that there wasn't enough light in the image, so I asked Jack to move closer to the window, and you can see that that really did create some extra depth in the image. So next up, I moved over to Kodak Tri-X 400. As I said earlier, Tri-X is probably my favorite black and white film stock, but I've never used Tri-X or any black and white film in the studio before. I definitely did overexpose a couple of these shots, but not too much that I couldn't alter it in post. I've always loved Tri-X for like the contrast and the grain, and using it in a studio setting just reaffirms this. I'd love to try it with some more dramatic lighting and really bring out the contrasts of the film, see how it holds up. So look out for that on the channel soon. I also shot this double exposure, which was kind of an accident, kind of not. So essentially I took the photo and the light didn't trigger. So I took it again and the light didn't trigger. And then on the third time I took it, it did trigger. But I actually really like this photo, and it's made me think that maybe double exposures is something I want to play around with in the future, because this was accidental but purposeful, if you know what I mean. But yeah, every time I've done double exposures, it's been an accident, or it's been because something's not triggered or something like that. So it's something that I would like to play around with a little bit more in the future. But please do let me know what you think of the shots in the comments. It was a really simple and fun shoot. I will tag Jack in the description as well. Definitely head over and check him out. Also, another thank you to Photo Cove, who is the brilliant studio that I use in Manchester, and Come Through Lab for developing and scanning these photos. They're also Manchester based, but you can post in your film if you want to use them. So I'll tag both Photo Cove and Come Through in the description if you want to check them out. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.